Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View. In this podcast, we have a very special guest with us, Nina Slama. Nina ji, welcome to our show. And let me introduce Nina ji, though she doesn't need much introduction. Nina ji is a specialist in international relations, Indian foreign policy, India-Israel relationships. She's a faculty and project manager at Reichman University in Israel. She is also an Indo-Israel affairs analyst at Usana's Foundation, and she has done extensive work on foreign policy in this region. She has published several papers. She has co-authored books. So, in today's discussion, we are going to take her perspective on the recent Operation Sindoor, which happened. Let me give our viewers a little bit of a backdrop of this event. From May 7th to May 10th, there was a brief conflict between India and Pakistan. It was an armed conflict. The backdrop was a terrorist incident which happened on 22nd of April in Pahalgam in Jammu Kashmir in India, in which 26 civilian tourists were killed by Islamic jihadists. The responsibility of this massacre was taken by the Resistance Front. This is a terrorist outfit which is an extension of Lashkar-e-Taiba, a globally known terror group which is headquartered in Pakistan. Following this, on May 7th, India launched Operation Sindoor and struck at 9 hideouts of these terrorist outfits. This led to retaliation from Pakistan, and then India did a counter retaliation. India was basically responding to the Pakistanis, and it was just trying to basically it launched this conflict primarily as a response to curb terrorism on India's territory, and so there are a lot of uh, as we are aware that Nina is from Israel, so as we are all aware that these days the conflicts are also accompanied by the battle of narratives, and ironically, what happens that like Israel and Hamas conflict, Israel has been winning this war on the ground, but it is probably most of us agree that it tends to often get on back foot when it comes to battle of narratives. A similar thing happened with India also. While India dominated in this conflict militarily, but actually we saw that number of foreign publications also published certain reports where they tried to show that Pakistan dominated this conflict. And apart from that, all the Islamic jihadist groups then come together and then extrapolate and amplify the false propaganda of jihadi outfits as well as the states who sponsor these jihadi outfits. So, Nina, my first question to you is that there is a stark similarity I find between these two conflicts as far as the battle of narratives is concerned. One is that also, incidentally, just a few weeks before this whole episode happened, I'd happened to have a conversation with Colonel Miri Aisin, one of your senior colleagues, and we specifically did a conversation on, that whether, this Pahalgam incident, it was a copycat of, the Hamas conflict, basically, which the way Hamas had attacked Israel on October 7th. So, how do you see the overall this India-Pakistan conflict, especially because while sitting in India, of course, we uh, believe a certain narrative, we carry forward with a certain narrative. But I want to look at, how the world is looking at this India-Pakistan conflict in overall, the parameters which I have shared with you. Please go ahead.
So first of all, thank you, Arun, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your important show. And as you mentioned, there are many similarities and many challenges, common challenges that India and Israel are confronted to. And when it comes to the combat of terrorism, both countries are collaborating very closely for many years. And it is true that today, when democratic countries are combating terrorism, they should combat on multiple fronts. And when we're talking about fronts, we're not talking about only geographical fronts, but also other fronts. Naming just a few, a psychological front, because the main objective of terrorism is to terrorize people and to disseminate fear among the people. making them not to come to Pahalgam, for instance, and to enjoy the beautiful views and beautiful places that Kashmir has to offer to different people in India. And there is also the information front, the war of narratives, misinformation, disinformation, spreading of fake news. And I really think that today, when countries should fight terrorist organizations and countries that are sponsoring them, they also should think about a media strategy. There is a lot of ignorance when it comes to conflicts around the world. If we're talking about the tensions between India and Pakistan, between Israel and terrorist organizations and other hostile neighboring countries that are challenging Israel's national security for many years. But still, advantages, military advantages is not enough. In parallel, India, Israel, and other countries should have a media strategy. What does it mean? So it is true that state broadcasting is very important because it sets clearly the actual facts and the actual events that occurred in a certain conflict, but it is not enough. We also have to use new media platforms by sending the message from, for the wider people, the wider population in the world that are not necessarily familiar with the historical backgrounds, the complexity of the conflict, what actually is in stake. And this is why I think that today countries should think about different influencers that could very much deliver the message or the narrative of countries that are combating terrorism today, because the world tends to see conflicts in a binary way. Seeing India as a powerful country with a powerful military establishment, with jets and tanks, and on the other hand, seeing Pakistan with maybe visuals of civilians and populations that are just getting hit by the mighty army of India. And we just have to break this binary, reality and show that the picture is very much broader. So we can use influencers, we can use the diaspora. There are huge communities, Indian communities around the world that know very well India and the country that hosts them and in which they are residing. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi for many years understood the importance of the diaspora around the world. Each and every official visit that is doing and that is taking place in different parts of the world, he always schedule a special event with the Indian diaspora, emphasizing the importance of the Indian diaspora within these countries. Because Prime Minister Modi understands that in order to extend strategic relations with different countries, it is not enough to confine them to the governmental level, but also to the people-to-people level. And I think that by combining these kinds of measures, that countries like India and Israel could, first of all, fight ignorance, fight fake narratives, fight misinformation and disinformation.
Nina, the drones which India had bought from Israel, they played a very significant role in this conflict. In fact, Pakistan was not able to intercept even a single drone. So it played a very important role. And India and Israel, so they have very close, apart from the civilizational ties, but of late they have very close military cooperation also. And India tends to buy a lot of equipment from Israel. So, but overall, when you look at the military outcome of this war, how do you assess it basically that with the Pakistanis, they have, in fact, started celebrating the victory, which is very surprising because they were not able to produce any evidence, any satellite imagery, whereas India was producing satellite imagery of, everything. And I also want to ask you this because you have been looking at India's foreign policy so closely. So how do you see this as I won't call it a ceasefire, but the cessation of hostilities. And President Trump's statement on this thing, because it created, a lot of ripples within the Indian polity also. Because India has always shunned a third party intervention, because the ceasefire tweet was for, or the ceasefire statement of Trump was followed by that he would like to kind of negotiate, to play a negotiator between India and Pakistan on Kashmir issue. But then he retracted it and he said, no, we haven't done it. On the other hand, we have seen that S. Jaishankar, the Indian foreign minister, was always continuously saying that Mark Rubio, the state secretary in the United States, so he was constantly in touch with him. And India's stand was very clear that the US is approaching us, but we are telling them basically that we are doing what we have to do. And if Pakistan wants to say something or do something, they need to get in touch with us. And ultimately, it was the Pakistan's DGM, or Director General Military Operation, who called up, India. But overall, so it has become, globally a very messy narrative that uh, who scored a diplomatic victory, whether India was put on a diplomatic back foot. Pakistan is also trying to project, India was isolated, whereas Pakistan had support of a lot of nations, though Pakistan was only supported by Turkey and China. And I'll come in my next question to the this nexus of Pakistan, China, Turkey, and especially Turkey being involved, what it means for Israel also. So, but if you could demystify or break it down in terms of India's foreign policy and diplomacy, and also a little bit of because it is closely associated with the military outcome.
Yes. So, first of all, it was very impressive to see the way that India conducted this whole event, right? This whole war and its whole tension with Pakistan. Following the Pahalgam attack, that was an horrific terrorist attack, India was able to promote harsh and focused diplomatic steps. First of all, to put it to just holding all the agreements regarding the Indus River and the Shimla Agreement to send a message to Pakistan that here India is just changing its policy and its doctrine and its whole approach to combating terrorism. Terrorism will not be tolerated anymore. And it was very impressive to see how, although it was very horrific and very emotional attack, that the terrorists were, similarly to Hamas, were just recording everything. They're horrific and killings and all the things that they did during the Pahalgam, attack. It was very impressive to see how, on the one hand, India is always, according to its political culture, gradually doing things, saying exactly or trying to understand what exactly happened, who are responsible for the attack, and according to it, just promoting diplomatic and military actions. So first of all, they put in abeyance the agreements, the diplomatic agreements that just assured that there will be a kind of understanding between India and Pakistan. We have to understand, like the Indus River, that is a very important thing when it comes to Pakistan, because it is like 80% of agriculture plants are getting the water from the Indus River, right? And the Shimla Agreement that was signed in 1972 following the 1971 war between India and Pakistan was also put on abeyance. Now, in this particular agreement, the Shimla Agreement, India always stated that this issue with Pakistan should remain on the bilateral level without third parties getting involved in. So when President Donald Trump just declared that it was an important element in getting the fragile ceasefire that is now in place between India and Pakistan, many people and many countries in the world didn't know exactly whether it was true or not, because India remained silent about it. Pakistan just said that President Donald Trump was able to to put this ceasefire together. And it was very confusing also as an analyst and also as a journalist, I suppose, to just understand what actually happened. And then, following these arch diplomatic actions, India was able to launch Operation Sindoor. That was very impressive. And why? Because in less than half an hour, India was able to attack 9 terrorist infrastructures within Pakistan and Kashmir, and eliminating 100 terrorists. It was very impressive because it shows that the Indian intelligence is very well knowledgeable about the threats that India is confronted to. And as an Israeli, that also we are still in the war, unfortunately, in 7 different fronts. Seeing the way that India conducted the Operation Sindoor was very inspirational for us as well. And following the beginning or the first stage of Operation Sindoor, and reiterating once and again that India do not want to escalate this operation into a full-scale war, because we have to remember that both India and Pakistan are nuclear powers. And there are many countries around the world that follow the development of the tensions very closely, because they were afraid that this could lead to a nuclear confrontation, because the Pakistani side declared once and again that if they do not have any, if they will have to go for it, they will do it. So then, following the first stage of Operation Sindoor, Pakistan attacked India with more than 400 drones that were produced in Turkey. So just by seeing the weapons that were used by India and by Pakistan, you can understand which kind of countries support both sides. So if we're talking about India, we know that drones and missiles are coming from Israel, Israel being the third largest country to export weapons to India. And within the framework of the Make in India initiative, now these drones and missiles are co-produced by Indians and Israelis in Indian soil. So in one end, we are collaborating very closely, but also implementing the Make in India initiative that Prime Minister Modi has been promoted for many, many years. There are also other countries such as France and Russia that were very prominent when it comes to India defense and offense capabilities. If we're talking about France, so there are the Rafale jets that were able to attack different targets in Pakistan very precisely, and being able to just restore the stability of India's national security. And more importantly, or as another mean, we are talking about the S-400 equipment that were deployed in different parts of India in order to intercept the large drones attacks coming from Pakistan, knowing once and again that these drones came from Turkey. Now, we have to remember that India was criticized very much by the West for procuring the S-400 air defense equipment. And India reiterated once and again that it has a strategic autonomy. It's powerful enough to make sure that their national security interests and needs are promoted. And we see that this kind of policy allows India to just make sure that in any kind of attack or in any kind of event, it is able to retaliate appropriately. Now, we see that we have Russia, we have France, we have Israel. This kind of collaboration is due to the multi-line approach that India is conducting for many, many years. Being able to having good and strategic relations with countries that might have a certain level of hostility between them. And we know very well that India has good relations with the US, but also with Russia, with Saudi Arabia and with Iran, with Israel and the Palestinian Authority. And this kind of approach allows India to have a flexible policy and allows India to just collaborate closely on strategic issues, military issues among them, in order to be sure that its interests are met. Now, if we're talking about Pakistan, we know exactly which kind of countries are on Pakistan's side. So we discussed about Turkish drones, but also about missiles and jets that were coming directly from China. We know that 80% of Pakistani weapons are coming directly from China. And these kind of countries are posing a very important and prominent threat on India's national security. There is this willingness to weaken India because it's doing very well. India is doing very well on many levels today, being a rising power that is interested in promoting like the Viksit Bharat initiative, being one of the most developed countries in the world. And we see that just recently, India became the fourth largest economy in the world. So we understand that there are elements, whether they are state and non-state actors, that would like to undermine India's willingness to become an important country in the world.
Before I move to, especially Turkey, I want to discuss with you because Turkey also has been keen area of interest for me. I've been following Turkey. I write regularly on Turkey also because in this part of the world, till this conflict had happened, not many people were discussing about Turkey. But before I move to Turkey, I just want to have a quick reaction on in this conflict. Apart from the foreign equipment, India also used a lot of indigenously developed systems like BrahMos. Though BrahMos is co-produced with Russia, but and India has already sold it to Philippines. And apart from that, Akash. So basically, what you may call our own indigenously developed Iron Dome system. Of course, it has, and India has kind of integrated a multi-layered system in which a significant part of that system is indigenously developed. No, I don't think, before this conflict happened, many big players in the world were taking India too seriously in terms of their capability to develop indigenous, arms system. But do you think this viewpoint is going to change because the information which we have, it is a confirmed information that more than 18 countries have already lined up for buying BrahMos. So, and other indigenous system, but BrahMos, I'm sure about that. So, how do you look at this? Because not even a single Pakistani missile or drone or even whatever they shot from their planes. So they were not able to hit even a single target. And because, I stay in New Delhi, the capital of India. So just kind of a less than 100 kilometers away, or probably less than 150 kilometers away. Uh, this missile which they had sent, the Fateh missile. So it was intercepted. So it was meant for one of our air bases and which they claim that they have destroyed, and where Prime Minister Narendra Modi went the next day after this cessation of hostilities was announced, and which was very embarrassing for actually Pakistan. But overall, so how do you look at whether India has arrived at the big stage? And because Israel has been one of the major, manufacturers and exporters of weapons, so you have that kind of an expertise there. So how do you look at India emerging as a major manufacturer and a potential exporter of weapons?
Yes, as you well mentioned, many countries were impressed by the capabilities, military capabilities of India, and would like to extend their military defense and security relations with India. And we will see that in the coming years, India will be a powerful country that will be able to just export its indigenous equipment to other countries. Can tell you that China, as you well know, is a major threat not only to India but also to other countries in West Asia, but also especially in East Asia, right? And the US are monitoring very closely different developments that are occurring in this particular region. And I am sure that the way India managed to intercept many projectiles that were just launched to its territory, many countries will not only procure indigenous weapons from India, but also learn the kind of tactics and strategic thinking of India when it comes to combating an hybrid warfare between a country, like against a country, but also against terrorist organizations that put a very serious challenge to countries that would like to combat them, together with a country that is sponsoring them.
Now let's come to Turkey. And Turkey is emerging as a really bad boy of this emerging new global order. It has been supporting Hezbollah. It has its media arm TRT. It is a major hub of disinformation and misinformation campaigns. In Syria also, it is playing a very kind of a dangerous role in terms of introducing instability in the region, and it has openly supported Pakistan. Turkey, of course, those who know the international relations. So Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. So these are the three major Islamic powers who are vying with each other to become, the leader of the Islamic world, and that has been a traditional rivalry. But Turkey under Erdogan seems to be on a path of collision with most of the liberal democracies, and openly supporting the Islamic jihadi terrorism, and in fact playing a major role in terms of bringing them together and strengthening them as a global Islamic jihadi terror network. And Israel is dealing with Turkey. I know Israel has a peculiar situation also, because Turkey is actually basically a country which had recognized Israel, unlike most of the other, Islamic countries. But because, as I mentioned, when I was having a conversation with Colonel Miri Aisin, so she said, we still have diplomatic relations with Israel, still has diplomatic relations with Turkey. So that puts Turkey on a different footing, from some of the other countries like Iran. But the way Turkey is, emerging as a major global problem. So, how do you see basically? Can there be synergy between, especially post this conflict? Can there be a synergy between India and Israel in terms of dealing with Turkey? And how important and significant it is to deal with Turkey, because US is openly dealing with Turkey on very friendly terms, which is a cause of worry. So a lot of people say that one of the prime reasons for this is because Donald Trump, his family has got major investments in Turkey. Apart from that, other major US, the US military industry complex, they also have major investments in Turkey. So it becomes a very, it's a dichotomy. US openly supports Israel. US is also openly supporting Turkey. And, US is opposing Islamic Jihad as a policy and the Islamic terror groups. And on the other hand, and now India also is suffering from that. And Turkey seems to be having it's active in, Central Asia, it's active in Africa, it's active now in South Asia also, openly playing. And everywhere it is promoting global jihadi terrorism. So, what do you think we need to do with the global community needs to do with Turkey? And if somebody else doesn't do anything, as generally happens with the international community these days, so what India and Israel can do together to kind of ensure that what Turkey is doing, so it should be checked, and it should be checked well in time.
Yes, so Turkey is challenging very much not only India but also Israel, as you well mentioned, because it's promoting the ideology of the Islamic Brotherhood that Hamas is very much following. And I can tell you that also Turkey hosted the high-level terrorists of Hamas in its soil as well. And we know very well that Turkey, through soft power means and also military means, is trying to undermine Israel national security. You mentioned Syria, you mentioned Hezbollah as well, and supporting very directly Hamas. And also, when it comes to India, is supporting militarily but also ideologically Pakistan. The main objective of President Erdogan is to promote a neo-Ottoman approach. It means that he perceives Turkey as an important player that should come back in time and rule the Islamic world. And this is why he's very much supporting Pakistan, to show that although there is a great distance between both countries, there is like this concept of Ummah, that under this concept, all Muslim countries and entities come together and are united against their different challenges that would like to undermine them. And it is true that since 2017, India is dealing with Turkey, and there was like a clash between, or a kind of deterioration of relations between these countries since then, and especially now. We could see different Indians that canceled the flights to Turkey and to Azerbaijan as well, and decided just to boycott Turkey because it sided very much with and very clearly with Pakistan. So Turkey is also part of an axis of countries that are part of a revisionist approach. It means that countries that would like to challenge the current world order. We're talking about Turkey, but also about Iran, North Korea, Russia, in a certain extent, that just would like to challenge the current world order by promoting their ideologies in different parts of the world. So when it concerns Israel, we're talking about West Asia and supporting state and non-state actors that would like to undermine pragmatic Arab countries and Israel in the region. But also, when it comes to South Asia, just extending ties with Pakistan, but also with China, although it is not part of the Islamic world, but is very much involved in what's going on in Pakistan. And just recently, we saw that China also was able to put together Pakistan and even Afghanistan under the Taliban regime into the same table in order to promote the China-Pakistan economic corridor and extend it also to Afghanistan. So the world today is very complex because on the one hand, you see countries that are standing with one side and with the other in certain issues, and with other countries in other issues. And it is very difficult to follow and exactly an understanding who are our allies, who are our enemies, and how should we navigate these turbulent borders. But I can tell you that today countries should be very, very strategic in their vision when it comes to dealing with different countries. They should emphasize on the sectors that they can collaborate on, and also be aware about different sectors that could be very challenging to their national interests. I think that many countries today should follow India when it comes to their strategic thinking and to promote what India is promoting for many years now, a strategic autonomy. Not binding themselves to one country or another on different issues, but to expand their relations with different countries in different regions in the world, and being able to collaborate closely in strategic issues that are relating to terrorism, because terrorism has to be tackled through a multidisciplinary approach. And if each and every country can put on the table their relative advantages, they will be able to combat terrorism in the world. So this is why I think that today conducting foreign policy become a very challenging task for many countries today in the world.
Thank you, Nina, for sparing so much of time, taking so much of time from your busy schedule. We'll end our conversation here, and it was wonderful to have you with us on our podcast. If to our viewers, if you have any questions for Nina, you can put these questions in the comment box of this YouTube video, and we'll take these questions to her, and we'll try to get answers for that. And we hope to have you soon back for another episode on the nationalist view. And to our viewers, if you have liked the video, please share it and like it and subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back soon with another issue and another expert. And thank you once again, Nina, for taking time out from your busy schedule and sharing
Thank
such
you,
deep
Aaron. Thank you
insights.
so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.